Hi, book or volume 5, Bible story. We are now at part 2, story 10, Arrows of Deliverance. Gradually, the years slipped by. Elijah moved from place to hovels. No, rewind. Gradually, the gradually the years slipped by. Elijah moved from palaces to hovels, talking freely with kings and common people. Some loved him, others hated him. In the time of war, famine, and much suffering, he was like a tower of strength to all who remained loyal to the God of heaven. Then he fell sick with a sickness whereof he died. While he was on his deathbed, Joash, king of Israel, came to visit him. With tears the king cried, O father, my father, the chariot of Israel, and the horsemen thereof. It was his way of saying how much the old prophet meant to him and his kingdom. And his words meant still more in view of the fact that he had just lost all about 10 of his chariots to the king of Syria. Elijah Elijah knew how discouraged the king was. So he said, Take bow and arrows. The king did so. Put your hands upon the bow, said the old man. The king obeyed, and Elisha put his hands upon the king's hand to let him know that God would be with him. Open the window eastward, said Elisha. Again the king did as he was asked. Shoot, said Elisha, and he shot. The arrow of the Lord's deliverance, cried the prophet, as the feathered shaft sped toward the rising sun, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria. For you shall smite the Syrians in Aphek, Aphek, Aphec, until you have consumed them. Then said the king, Take the arrows. And the king took him. And then, of course, it's got a picture of Elisha and the king down at the bottom. And there's the illustration. Smite them on the ground, said Elisha. The king banged banged the arrows on the ground 3 times. No, cried the prophet heatedly. You should have done them 5 or 6 times. Then you would have smitten Syria until you had consumed it. Then the striking of the arrows on the ground meant more than the king understood. He should have banged the arrows down 5, 6, 7, 10 times to show his eagerness to do the work of God, the work God wanted him to do. After this, Elisha became weaker and weaker, and that he knew his end was near. Perhaps he wondered sometimes whether the fiery chariot that had taken Elijah, Jah with a J, to heaven would come for him, but no chariot came. For he died as others die, and they buried him. Someday, however, in the gloomy morning of the resurrection, he will awake to see the chariot after all, coming straight for him, with the shining horsemen of heaven eagerly to carry him home. And then, of course, it has the graveyard, and halfway, and people and the resurrection, which that's what they always say. So, and most of the people that are in here, if you look in the background, they are in modern dress. Excuse me. Alright, so that is the end of Story 10, Part 2, Story 10, and the end of Part 2. So, like always, I'm going to stop, and this one was very short. and you can see I need to stop anyway. And then we'll start on our next set of stories here in a bit. See you in a minute.